So here we are. We've already passed the solstice. We're already in the middle of Yule, and the new year, the official new year, Uphelia, as the Pict Norse of Shetland and Orkney call it, and it's a time of year where you reflect on the year that's passed and it's what's coming ahead. My attitude at this time of year is this is the time of the hermit, when essentially, not that you hide away from the world, but you go internally into yourself. You become introspective. In the period of this time of year, because of Christmas, is often reflected with things just shopping and commercialism and so on. And then we have the kind of phony platitudes about help someone who's not as fortunate as you are, your fellow man, peace on earth and all this stuff. When they say peace on earth, the way I see it is that this time of year, our ancestors in Europe were not Christians. They would have not had the Middle Eastern climate, which I know it gets kind of cold in winter, but it gets nothing like this part of the world. They would have locked themselves away in their round houses, in their long houses, and so on, and they would have burned fires over the winter, and they would have basically did everything to not venture outdoors until the spring, just because of the cold. So just try to imagine 1,000 years ago or more, a long house in this part of the world, or a round house in the middle as a turf fire burning constantly. Everyone's gathered around the exterior part of the building in their own little kind of cubicles, like their own little rooms, which is basically a bench. So everyone had an element of privacy, although it was communal. And you sat there and the fire burned constantly in the middle of on top of the fire, in the middle of the long house or the round house, would be a large cooking pot which would be constantly replenished with food as was needed, potatoes, a bit of stock, what was ever needed. And during these long nights and short days of cold, people would be naturally brought together by the climatic necessities of the season. And this would be the time of imagination and stories. The older folks would tell stories to the younger ones, stories of legends and myths and monsters and dragons and fairies and elves. And the imagination of both the adults and the children listening to these, as the embers flew up from the fire, would be mystical. They would be transported into a place of imagination and creativity. So they would work on their crafts. They would carve their ivory tusks from walruses. They would carve wooden little statuettes. They would work on pieces of metal pottery. And so that's what I would hope you guys would do, because that's what I'm planning to do. I'm going to have a very traditional end of year and beginning of the new year. I'm going to work on basically, I don't have anyone to tell me stories, although maybe I'll do something like that for you here. Maybe I'll tell some legends or something. But also I will be reading. Maybe you should read, stock up some books, stock up some wine, stock up some things that would, provisions in that sense. Leave the house as little as you can. I know many of us have to work for a living, but if you can avoid that and just basically go into a cocoon of self-reflection like the Hermit card in the tarot, and become, as our ancestors were, in a state of imagination and a state of reflection and creativity, working on crafts, working on art. If you don't do those things, maybe try and play music, try and do something, but absorb the stillness of the season into your life. So no matter what religion or atheist you are, it doesn't matter. We're still subject to the realities of the climatic conditions imposed upon us, unless we live in warm, sunny climates, which most of my audience don't. Although I have a huge audience down in Australia, maybe down there it's different for them, and I hope they're having a great time. But that's the whole purpose of the season, to go inward, to work inward, to create, to reflect. So when spring comes, by the time Bent Beltane arrives, but even before that, in bulk, we are now becoming recharged like a seed, and we're ready to grow again when the warm rays of the sun return. So I hope you all have a beautiful holiday season. If you're Christian, Jewish, happy Christmas, happy Hanukkah, happy greetings for Eid. If you're Muslim, I don't know what the Hindu one is, I forget. I think Holi is later in the year. But whatever it is, enjoy it. Happy Yule, happy solstice, Upelia. And remember, after all the partying is done, all the chocolate's eaten and all the wine has been drunk, then you can clear yourself out and begin to germinate the seed of knowledge and of creativity inside you, and begin again in the new year. I know I will, but I know me, I'll probably be busy, but it will only be creative things. It won't be anything spectacular. Look after yourselves, and thank you for being there for me in 2016, and I'll be there for you in 2017. All the best. Bye.